Right now, there's so much going on politically. There's so much going on social media, comparisons. And I think for me personally, I've been just being really intentional about being in the present moment, not focusing about the future. There's always so much to do in the future, so much to achieve, so much to obtain. But if you have more focus on what's currently in front of you, the gratitude that you have, the positive experiences in your life, the people that fill up your cup, those things like really mean a lot to me. And it reduces my anxiety, reduces my stress, and just allows me to function in a more positive light.
Hello, and welcome back to the Voices of Change podcast. And it's another beautiful day, and I'm excited for this episode today. And it's been a long time coming, I guess, doing this. So today we have a special guest who I think is a perfect example of what we are calling ourselves, Voices of Change. And without further ado, let me introduce to y'all Mr. Nathan Shepard right there. What's up, Nate?
Appreciate it, man. Man. Thank you so much for having me. It's a beautiful day, like you said. I'm just grateful for having me on this platform with you guys today. And let's spin it.
Awesome. So just to give y'all a little background on who Nathan Shepard is, he is a mental health advocate, clinical psychology, doctoral student right now. Put some respect on his name. And he's an Oakland, California native whose journey began in sports and evolved into a lifelong commitment to healing and community impact. And he is deeply committed to raising awareness around mental health, promoting positive coping strategies, combating substance abuse, and reducing stigma, especially in underserved and historically marginalized communities. And Nathan, he has co-authored some research on substance use and social processing from adolescence to adulthood. So he is an author. If you guys want to check that out, reach out to him. And at his core, Nathan is passionate about creating spaces where people feel seen, supported, and empowered, fostering the environments rooted in empathy, inclusion, and access to meaningful mental health resources. So his mission is simple: to make healing human, accessible, and real. So since now y'all know a little about him, I'm going to let him come in and reemphasize who he is. You got the floor, man.
Hey, I appreciate it again. Thank you so much. I think your platform is beautiful. You guys are uplifting the community. And yeah, today we're just going to talk about, mental health. I come from Oakland, like was mentioned before. I have a lot of experience in sports, which led me to this path of mental health. Um, just growing up in Oakland, California, I had a lot of experiences, positive community representation. And, that looked like me being able to go to the Ace games and Raiders games and spend time at Marcus Bookstore, which allowed me to have a level of consciousness and preparedness for school. And I just think there was a lot of enrichment that allowed me to gain sustainable self-identity, right? And so with that being said, I met Tex and UC Davis. What led me to UC Davis is my experience with sports. So I played football at a high level. Was able to attend UC Davis through football. And that was a short-lived experience for me because I kind of was like, had issues with coaches, didn't really get engaged within that space, right? And I think one of the biggest things for me was I found a lack and a gap within mental health support. I think a lot of people and a lot of athletes dealt with a lot of just negative generalizations to mental health. I had a lot of friends deal with some experiences, and as well, just being in Oakland, you have some maladaptive things, like inadequate nutrition, corner stores on every block, a lot of violence. And so for me, I was like, how can I figure out a solution to this? How can I better represent my community and, talk about something unique? So in a nutshell, that's kind of a little bit about me.
Man, thanks for sharing that. Now it's kind of like, have our moment, a grounding moment for quick check-in, since we're talking about the mental health things, how would you say you're arriving to this conversation today? Like, what's been on your mind lately?
Yeah. I've been really just focused on like being in the present. I think right now there's so much going on politically, there's so much going on social media, comparisons, and I think for me personally, I've been just being really intentional about being in the present moment, not focusing about the future. There's always so much to do in the future, so much to achieve, so much to obtain, but if you have more focus on what's currently in front of you, the gratitude that you have, the positive experiences in your life, the people that fill up your cup, those things like really mean a lot to me, and it reduces my anxiety, reduces my stress, and just allows me to function in more positive light. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about. What's been on my mind as of recently,
Man, yeah, me too, man. I think that's one thing I definitely resonate with right now is being present in every single thing that I'm doing.
for sure.
Even this morning when I was getting ready to for us to do this, I was like, oh man, I was really into this Arsenal and Chelsea game. Like
Yeah,
Arsenal right now is like number one in the Premier League, and I'm a
yeah.
big Arsenal fan, and we need to
You
win
is
this. We need to win this year because if they don't win, ah man, it's I'm gonna hear a lot of things, and I just wanted to be present and seeing the score that they're
right,
in the lead. You know, I was like,
right,
let me stop watching this and do this, but
right. You got it in the
yeah,
background.
it got in the back, but so I muted up.
Yeah,
So
man. I hear you. I hear you.
I really like the fact of being present in the moment. What's been on my mind lately, honestly, for me, it's the one thing I can say has been on my mind lately is actually staying disciplined. That's like one
Mm,
thing that I've really been on my mind lately is understanding the importance of discipline. Consistency and discipline are like the two things that just keep like they're I don't know, sometimes they give me anxiety a little bit. They give me
right,
like a little bit more stress. I'm like, am I disciplined for that? Or am I being too
right,
disciplined? You know, it's like oh, I can't have too much water today. But I mean, it's water, you know?
right.
So it's like I try to do those and then also trying to stay disciplined physically,
Yeah,
which I can definitely say has been something that's been on my mind lately, trying to kind of get over that hump of staying consistent on a routine.
yeah.
So those have been a few things on my mind. And you know, now kind of going back into kind of your journey and how you became or who you are now as an individual, um, are there like any early childhood things that have shaped you from where you come from to who you are now?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think, just a representation of like inner city communities, right? So oftentimes there's a lack of resources, a lack of positive supports, right? And so I think at an early age, I started to realize, I had awesome experiences going to really good schools, but at the same time, too, grew up predominantly in East Oakland. And so I had this dichotomy of going to really nice schools, but then at the same time, too, like going back home to some instabilities, right? And I had parents divorce and just those situations where, my mom had lack of resources, right? And so just trying to figure out those instabilities, right, for myself and my family, that was a big thing for me. And then as well, I kind of already talked about this before, but just looking around my environment, right? The ease of corner stores right on every block, and the ease of the music that we're listening to, and just the perpetuation of some of like these deaf culture kind of things. And it was like, why do people speak in this way? Why can't we uplift more? And I obviously, due to the societal norms of being in Oakland, like you had to do certain things, and there's a level of vulnerability that you kind of have to step back from, right? But at the same time too, I was, like, often confused about these things, and so I always thought about, like, mental health, like, I didn't really conceptualize it at that point, but I was like, why is it that, homie from the block is, getting his bag or whatever in the corner, right? Or why is, folks, trying to, shoot up this place? And that I just obviously is due to the environments, but I always thought about, like, what more could be said about this? And with that too, I grew up in a Jamaican household. I have a father who's, Caribbean descent, Jamaican descent, and emotional intelligence was not discussed. You know what I'm saying? That was something that was, someone like a taboo type of subject, right? And that with the sports background where, it's like you get injured, rub some dirt on it, you know what I'm saying? Man up, all those things kind of always was going through my mind. And it didn't really ever click until I got to college and I kind of had some time to self reflect. but I think those things like really shaped me. Whether it be the hyper masculinization or the inability to talk about emotional intelligence from my father, or just like the environment of Oakland, being as it is, that shaped me foundationally.
Wow, man. Yeah, Oakland is a very interesting place. I had the opportunity to visit there a few times in different places. I've
Yeah.
actually lived there for a summer once, but I think I was
Oh, for
more
real?
in the Palo Alto side. Yeah, I was like in high school, I think, when I did that, and it definitely changed my perspective and how I saw where I come from and where I live. And I was like, oh my God. And then being in Davis as well, it's like seeing people from those different places. It's like, oh wow, people have different perspectives and different upbringings and
Right.
different foundations and how they go along with things. Um, and for yourself, were there like some experiences that influenced you to how you became to understand like mental health? Because you mentioned about the aspect of emotional intelligence.
Right. Yeah, no,
So
I mean, go ahead.
are there like specific moments that you had like a pivot where you're like, oh my God, this is kind of where I see myself becoming a better person than I am, and where essentially like what we do here. You when did you decide I want to be a voice of change for myself and also a voice for
Mm.
change for other people?
Yeah, no, I think you actually alluded to this. You talked about UC Davis. I think just being out, so Davis is like completely in contrast to Oakland, completely different, right? There's nothing, there's rural, there's like nothing but land, there's cows and haystacks. Like there isn't that city pressure, there isn't that really big violence aspect. So it kind of gave me a sense to just like think back and just relax, right? Like I was kind of able to do me. And specifically when I had transitioned from football to like being a true student at school, that was a huge identity shift for me. And a lot of times, I think what I kind of conceptualized this voice for change as you're talking about, like this role and who I wanted to be and change myself. I think oftentimes I was like, okay, well, what more can I do? Like, can I stand up and speak about this type of things? Or can I have conversations and do mentorship around, what some positive coping strategies that we can utilize? Because I think the pressures that we come from, fundamentally change our identity and perspectives. But I think there's just like so much more out there, and especially for me having that transition from being an athlete to a student, it gave me so much more freedom, and I was able to like kind of express myself in a unique way instead of like fitting this mold, if that makes sense. And that just gave me some freedom at the end of the day. I wonder if you had that same experience in college for you, just like not the athletic experience, but like whether it be having the freedom away from family, away from your community. I wonder if that had a big lasting change on you.
I mean, Davis' experience for me was it was definitely something that, because I went to boarding school as a kid, and
Okay.
it gave me more of like a experience. Like I'm at the adult boarding school type of thing, right? So
Mm,
I knew that first I had to just, I'm there for school, I'm there to learn, but also at the same time it's kind of my way of trying to create my own pathway in whatever I want to do. I didn't know exactly what I want to do, but I did know that I wanted to be a Wall Street stockbroker, right?
hey,
That was the one thing I was like, you know what?
yeah,
Let me try to let me that's something I can achieve and like that's attainable. Let me try to get that. But as time went on, I came to learn about myself. I came to meet people, and cultures and environments and
right,
communities played a role in kind of my journey there. And I was never really somebody who was like following the crowd. I used to really just try to follow and stay kind of grounded to my own path, no matter
yeah,
what anybody said, right? Like, and sometimes it was taken as a misunderstanding
yeah,
about me or whatever it was, right? And to me, that molded me more, kind of much more stronger into where I'm at now.
yeah,
And seeing different ways that people will cope with things. Man, I even sometimes would indulge in some of those things. And then
for
I would
sure.
realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But at the same time, it's like, well, now I can say, looking back, I'm like, well, it's not something I regret, but it's something that I can use as a valuable experience for myself, in kind of having, I guess they say, that gray hair wisdom,
Yeah,
which,
yeah,
because I've been in that position and now I can kind of see, okay, somebody asked me about that. I'm like, look, this, when I was in that situation, this is how I approached it. This is the outcomes of it. And eventually after graduating, um, I really was still kind of thinking life as a, to this day, I still live life like as a college student, where you're living on your basic needs and trying the hardest you can to accomplish your goal, right?
right.
And that is something I can say that I really took out of it. And then overall, just the city of Davis. I could go home to Sacramento if I wanted to.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got the
yeah.
chance to like travel abroad, to go study abroad. I got the chance to go do internships in DC. Um, I even got every single year I was in Davis, I was always working either one or three jobs or something, just to
Yeah,
like, have something to support myself. I never really tried to rely on anybody else. I was trying to make sure, how can I become like self-reliant? And that was probably the hardest thing to, like, in Davis for me, was how do I establish that level of self-reliancy to where if like I can grow my own stuff, I can feed myself, I can wash my own clothes, I can fold my own clothes, I can go to the grocery store and know how to buy groceries. Those are like small little things that you realize, oh wow, those are life skills that
right.
transition and translate into bigger things, right? Um, so I would say that was my experience and something I will never forget. And then also, I guess, also being part of, I think I was being part of a fraternity as well. That was kind of awesome as well.
For
Shout
sure.
out to Phi Beta Sigma, LK all day, So that was also an awesome experience, just being a
Right.
part of that and seeing different personalities and engaging with different people. Um,
That connection,
and
that social connection, man. Yeah, it's everything.
yeah, that was really big for me. But at the same time, the one thing that I know from Davis that I will never forget about is the aspect of self-reliancy. Because
Yeah.
I anybody who tells you that Davis is an easy school, they're lying.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. No,
Yeah.
it does not matter if for you to get straight A's in Davis, you gotta put in the work
Oh
and
man.
you gotta put in the effort. And I will be quite honest, I only got straight A's like three times, and then
Yeah, right.
three times the rest, it was crawling, like just
Yeah, man.
trying to get whatever I can do to make sure I don't become like a statistic.
Right, right. It's
Um,
easy to get overlooked too, man. It's like it's
yeah,
easy to like definitely hit those weeder courses, and then next thing you know, I mean, I even had a story where you know, I had a certain trajectory based upon my degree. I took like neurology, physiology, behavior, but then like I was playing football at that same time too. So I had I guess I didn't wasn't meeting the benchmarks to make it and graduate in a 4-year span, right? And so they were like, okay, we're thinking about, cutting you off. And it's like, I'm like, I didn't even have academic probation or anything, but reached out to support systems like the CAD Center, right? And they just told me, pick a different major and you'll be fine. And so things like that, like you gotta get caught into these I guess ideas, these perspectives that get pushed upon you. And if you don't know or you don't have support systems, it's really hard to like navigate those trajectories for you.
that's true. Yeah, it's true. I think by my third year, I don't think I want to be a Wall Street stockbroker anymore, because
Yeah, the economics hard, huh?
econ was hard, but it's not even the econ was hard. It was when I got the chance to kind of have an internship experience of
Mm,
what those people do and how they live their lifestyle. And then once I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, money looks nice,
yeah,
but when the hell will I get to enjoy?
yeah,
Because it seemed like constantly, and then their lifestyle is the lifestyle I saw. It was not what I was like. I
yeah,
don't know if
right.
I want to do that lifestyle all the time. So that really kind of shaped how I saw the culture for myself, the environments. Um, and now kind of like talking about in terms of the mental health in this moment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're now in that field as somebody who's eventually going to be considered like the expert of these. We're going to be having books about you on this. Um, how would you define like mental health in today's context?
Yeah, of course. And before I even start, I'm not licensed. I have not completed my dissertation. I have not completed all these benchmarks for me to be a mental health professional at this capacity. So if there's anything that needs to be addressed in terms of mental health stability, definitely reach out to a professional who's licensed. I'm not licensed yet, but just in terms of mental health climate right now, I'm thinking it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's almost like we're changing away from like mental health being a stigma. You know what I'm saying? I think like for last like probably 10 years, like and even prior to that, mental health was a stigma. So it was kind of like associated with like a disorder or, some severe presentation of symptoms. But I think now it's kind of like turned into, emotional regulation techniques, information, like boundary settings, resiliency, like nervous system regulation and balancing, like parasympathetic nervous system, and all those things, and purpose and meaning behind like what our lives entail. And I think those are really positive things. And I think, kind of where we are currently with the societal norms, I think we have a lot of verbiage to use. Like, we talk about trauma a lot on social media, right? We talk a little bit about like attachment styles or, boundary settings. Like I know like a big word that a lot of people use is like gaslighting and stuff like that, right? And although that's not really like a psychological term, like it is, promoting mental health awareness, right? And so I think that's a positive thing. But overall, I do believe there is misinformation. I know the American Psychology Association, has a big, portion to play with that. So they're kind of trying to rein in certain individuals talking about mental health from not a clinical or evidence-based practice standpoint, right? Which is a huge deal because I think oftentimes, people might see, a video on TikTok and then they kind of pathologize themselves, right? They kind of think that because they have some discomfort or their normal presentations, that that means that they have some sort of disorder. So I think, it's a double-edged sword, but overall, I think that the mental health, wellness, and awareness is a really positive thing. It's a growing thing. And it kind of just reduces that stigma I think that we all need for ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good point for you to like the impact of social media.
Right.
Is definitely something that I've definitely been a victim to in some senses where you see like something and you're like, oh my God, is that me or
Yeah.
is that something that is an identification of me? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me take a step back. Let me talk to my therapist first, and see how those things work, right? Um, when you look at how social media currently is right now, right? And I feel like for me right now, the way I see social media, it's kind of illuminating this whole productivity culture,
Yeah.
and trying to showcase like social media is. But the way I look at it, and I think maybe it's from an economic point of view, is like when you look at people's behaviors and decisions, social media can be used for different purposes in different contexts,
For
right? You can
sure.
be on there to either spread positivity,
For sure.
or you can be there to either break down people,
For
or you
sure.
can be on there to just share whatever you feel like, right?
Right.
Um, how do you see the impact of social media right now, especially for young men out there? How do you see it impacting kind of the conversation they have around mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on which viewpoint you're looking at, right? I think monetization plays a huge, huge role, right? Like I think um the flip side, right? On the positive, men are like now able to talk about vulnerability. I think going to therapy is kind of like a good conversation to have. I think there's discourses, there's people on podcasts talking about these things. We have multiple engagements where people are putting out information about their lives, sharing transparency about what their experiences are. And I think this is shifting around, like shifting away from, like the man up ideology or like, you just gotta handle it, toughen up, don't show your weakness. But at the same time, too, I think like social media is still like largely functioning into, like productivity, like you mentioned, right? So, the kind of the things of producing and performance is still a huge role. And I think, overall, if we can find a way to reduce like the isolation of people, right? Like I think when you have the monetization and folks are super ingrained with like breaking each other down, right? that promotes isolation, right? And that promotes social anxiety, especially within the younger generations. But I think if we shift that and mold it to more globalized, increased health and showing transparency, and people's real life experiences, right? Like when celebrities are talking about their lived experiences, and thought leaders and high achieving leaders are, being vulnerable. I think that's a great display of mental health, right? And that kind of shifts away from those clickbait contents and people just monetizing, the reducing stigma, and it doesn't feel genuine. I think that's a positive thing when we're able to get to more vulnerable individuals talking about their experiences, because at the end of the day, that's how we kind of relate, right? Like you have to hear what someone experiences, you got to hear the growth for it to make sense for someone else to implement in their lives, right?
Yeah, that's a big thing you just touched on, their vulnerability. It reminds me of my recent book that I just um published.
You
Well, it's not
put,
out yet,
yeah, man.
but people by people who ordered it, I think some people, I think you ordered you
Yeah,
got a copy. I hope you received it. Um and that book, it was something that I it was a challenge to myself, honestly, on understanding the aspect of vulnerability,
yeah,
because like the first 5 books I did were very short. It was just more poetic, me just trying to talk my thoughts out loud and write them down and seeing the ones that actually can be beneficial to
yeah.
somebody else, right? Like the book that I had published, Crazy and Messy but Loving, I did that in 2023, and I was just finishing grad school, or maybe I think I was starting grad school. It was one of those. And in that book, the whole goal for me writing that book was trying to give people a space that they can put their thoughts as well, and they can kind of go alongside in terms of what I was thinking, like, because the way I was thinking is a collaborative vulnerability, right?
Hmm.
Now with this recent book, it was more of me trying to now kind of see the culture and systems and how systems support and fail mental well-being, because if you read the book, you can kind of see the character Junior. He goes through different phases that a lot of people go through,
Right.
and I use a little bit of my own experience into this character and how the different systems that he has been through and the different observations he's had and the ramifications sometimes of cultures and systems, and also holding himself accountable, right, beyond just the regular thing.
Yeah.
So now kind of asking you on this, in terms of, connecting your individual experiences to broader systems, how do you see like our current systems right now supporting, or I guess failing, kind of mental well-being?
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple. I think systems for me is conceptualized as like, primary care settings, and I think community-based mental health programs. And so I think one of the biggest gaps is the access to care, right? So I think oftentimes, I mean, I can't even run the statistics on that, but I think depression history is a huge deal, right? And I think a lot of people deal with it, but they also receive like fewer or less consistent treatment, right? And that's a big deal, right? Because you can have, you know, being diagnosed or depression, or you can even have symptoms of depression, and someone can check that. But if the consistent treatment or consistent talk therapy or consistent modalities of therapy isn't there, you're not treating it. And that's the access of care. So I think that's a huge failure within the support system. It also increases, wait times. It also increases clinic and clinician and provider shortages. There's a big insurance barriers with that too. Another one that kind of comes to my mind as well is just like the social determinants of health, right? Like I think social determinants of health is kind of multiple situations that that I guess, perpetuate or increase some form of anxiety disorder or any symptomology, right? And so that comes in forms of poverty, it comes in forms of racism, house instabilities and community violence. And this creates a lot of distress, right? And so when you have lack of access to care and social determinants of health, and also fragmentation of primary care settings, so if things of mental health are not integrated in the system. And also everything is like functioning in silos, individualized silos. It's hard to find prevention. It's also hard to find early prevention, intervention, and housing for these folks. And like employment is challenging too. So it's kind of a whole system that I feel like if it's connected and is integrated together with mental health, and there's communicated silos to which folks see different pieces of resources and care, that would just increase the access and create consistent support for those individuals.
Yeah, you really touched on a good point there. And it kind of makes me think about the difference between awareness and real support. It's because you can do a lot of awareness things to bringing up things to discussion and talking about them,
Hmm.
but sometimes the real support is what's really actually kind of lacking, right? Like the systems in place to ensure a specific, I don't know how, like, I know how to use like economic terms where a specific input is having the best outcome for
For
themselves, right?
sure.
Based upon what experiences they're going through. And if you look at, we had a conversation, I think, in a previous episode where we talked about um, somebody's environment mostly sometimes dictate what they end up doing, right? If you're in an environment that's full of violence, you're more likely to be looking over your shoulder all the time, hypervigilance.
Hypervigilance. Yeah.
You're more likely to be like, oh, what's going on? I want to make sure. Versus somebody who comes from more like a not that type of environment, they're just more like, oh, you know, less, I guess, less carefree. They just look forward. They don't look
Right.
over their shoulder. They're not worried about those things. We had that conversation. I think it was like we had a Roots of Resilience series that me and my co-host Gabe did. And the one thing though that I'm still curious about is like what does accountability look like beyond conversations, right? Because you can have conversations with people and people can get the right information
Right.
and you can even tell them like that's the wrong information. How do we hold each other accountable though?
I think, well, from a mental health standpoint, what I'm thinking more of is like just tracking outcomes, right? Like, I think accountability for support really looks like like reducing certain rates of things. So, like for me, when we're talking about the primary care setting or that mental health access, like I feel like when you're able to increase more populations, increase treatment utilization, if you're able to decrease wait times. So that means that if someone's experiencing something, and say for instance, they're in Northern California, they got Kaiser or whatever, they're able to see a clinician or provider more efficiently. I mean, I think that's accountability, right? I think, reducing, suicide rates is outcome. It's measurable and it's trackable. I think accountability really looks like when we can put numbers on a page and we can clearly define where the strengths is coming from and where are the limitations and being able to tweak those things, right? Like it's completely transparent, you know what I'm saying? And you know, both me and you can look at that in this data and we know exactly what the outcomes are and we can tweak things based upon that, you know what I'm saying? So like that also goes in line with budget alignment, obviously policy change and having more staffing, more school supports, um, and also tracking burnout because I think burnout is a real thing too, right? Everybody's experiencing it. But specifically in this field, it's definitely, I think, a big issue, right? And so if you're able to track these things being measurable and people are not just throwing out, you know, terms or jargon without any like measurable outcomes, I think that's a risk if you're just like throwing out terms and there's no quantifiable data that's supporting it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is a measurable outcomes is a real thing. And good point on the aspect, I believe that data does tell a
It
story,
does.
data storytelling is one of the most important the things I think that can be used in creating change and actually being a voice of change for whatever specific thing it is. If you look at the data, numbers never lie,
It never do.
they never do. So that's it's a really good point you bring up on there. I was gonna transition a little bit into kind of like a little bit more lightness here,
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of some for you, like what helps you usually reset or like recharge?
Yeah,
Or
for
what are
me,
what are different things you indulge in?
yeah, no, for me, it's like touch some grass, you feel me? Like, it's like literally take yourself out of the box that we're in. We're often in offices, we're usually in our for instance, I'm in an apartment, people in houses, all these different types of things. So it's like for me, I need to get out, get some vitamin D, touch my skin, you know what I'm saying? Get some sun action. For me, it's hiking. For me, it's taking my dog on walks, long walks. For me, it's also I've been getting back into like sports. So I played a lot of sports, played football at a high level. But for me, getting back into competitiveness is a big thing for my own self and my own well-being. And so I've been playing tennis. Just spending time outside is just so rewarding and it fills up my cup completely, even if I'm by myself. Just that aspect of taking the time to sit down, decreasing that instant gratification and those dopamine hits that we be scrolling on the phone with, you know what I'm saying? Just like it might be simple, but just watching a tree blow in the wind, you know what I'm saying? It's something simple, but it's nice.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that, man. Some grass usually is definitely awesome, but sometimes I be starting to itch, man. I be like, it's too much. I've been on the grass too much.
You see, I'll be the
uh,
opposite. I'll do the same. I'll just be rolling around. Not really,
yeah,
but
it's awesome. Hey, I didn't know you tennis, man. I love tennis, man.
yeah.
That's my first ever. That's the first sport I ever played as a
Oh,
kid.
bro, we
So
got run it
bef-
then.
before I played soccer and stuff, and I fell in love with soccer. But yeah, tennis is my that's my thing. That's my thing.
Yeah,
That's my
man, it's so
thing.
much
That's my
fun. It's
thing.
so much fun.
Yeah. Would you say you're like a morning person or like a night thinker?
Man, that's tough. I feel like I'm a night thinker now because I just got so many projects, so many things I'm working on. And I think it also kind of, I don't know, at the same time, like I feel like waking up morning is like an obligation. And then at night, you kind of able to function on your own. The productivity comes in whatever way it comes and sees fit. So sometimes it might be a large paper I got to work on or something that I can crank out and I ain't got no responsibilities later on in the day. Well, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm definitely a night thinker.
Yeah,
I've never been a morning person, but I would say I mentioned like I went to boarding school as a kid, and I since then like waking up in the morning. And you say it's felt like an
yeah,
obligation. It's never felt like an obligation. It's just always felt like a natural. Just all right, the sun is up. Something has to
right.
happen because I know at some point that naturally I'm just a night thinker to where it's not like I don't even like doing things at night. Actually, I like doing things during the day
Okay,
so that at night I can think about those things that I did. And I am my biggest critic. Like I shouldn't be, but I really like to reflect and give myself feedback on things. Like, could I have done better at that? Probably. Or did I do the best that I can? Okay, fine. I'll just not think about that. Let me think about the next
yeah,
thing. Let me go and see what I can improve from what I did during the day. And then at night, I think it's where I kind of, tighten up my screws to kind of see where I can improve. And I give shout out to Improve Your Tomorrow. They that 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 organization, man, is very monumental to me in my life because just what they're named, Improve Your Tomorrow, it really just makes you think, how can you just be 1% just better?
right,
You know, even if you give your all, how can I be 101%? So that's what I do when I'm a night thinker is what is that one specific thing that would set me apart
right.
and give me that extra bump and lift? So it's definitely that. And I'm a big foodie.
Oh, me
So
too.
I can't like when it's night thinking time, I know I'm gonna probably be trying to eat some
Yeah,
food, whatever it is. And I'm not a sweets person. I'm more of like a crunchy, salty type of thing. And sometimes I indulge too much in those, but those are my like little things that help me reset and recharge sometimes. And it's a habit that I'm trying to get better about, try to replace maybe with some blueberries here or some strawberries there. Um, so that I would say for that. What would you say is a place that kind of helps you feel grounded?
yeah. I think a place that makes me feel grounded is being around culture, right? Whether that be, attending music events or if even if it's like a community-based program or I mean, obviously I discuss nature, so that's my main grounding site. But I think just having being around like-minded individuals, people that want to talk about, real issues and positive perspectives, people that uplift me, like somewhere that I could feel home. Like that, I think the intentionality of home could look so different in so many different settings, right? But just finding that within people, finding that within myself and things I just like enjoy doing. Um, whether it be me cooking some food. You're just talking about being a foodie, like getting some groceries and ingredients together and then, putting it all together, and just bringing it together. And that brings out, a positive feeling because you work towards it, you get to enjoy it. And it kind of is just a grounding, centering thing because you're taking the appreciation for small things that you normally forget about, right? So quick. So for me, it's just like finding just a little enjoyments in small things, and being around like-minded individuals, being around positivity, and being around culture for me is just grounding and enriching for me as well.
Man, I 100% agree with that, man. I can feel you on that in terms of the food part. Like I enjoy challenging myself in the kitchen. I don't care if it comes out good or not. I'm still gonna eat it because I put the work into it.
Yes, sir.
Um, yeah, and I would say one thing that really grounds me, honestly, and it's not really like popular opinion, but I really I appreciate solitudeness.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing that really grounds me a lot is because I don't know, it just gives me time to talk to
Right.
myself and really you know what they call like method acting. I can method act myself in terms of how do I think like this? How do I think like
Yeah.
this? How do I be like this? And that aspect of solitudeness, it gives me grounding into kind of just myself personally. And then I would agree about culture. Like for me, I've been raised with culture all my
Right.
life. And I like to travel. So anytime I'm traveling, I'm 100% present. Like no matter where it is, I am 100%. I'm doing everything, whatever it is. I'm not missing my flights though.
Yeah, you can't miss that flight,
Um,
bro.
yeah, I'm not missing my flights though. So those things really ground me,
Right.
especially when I get the chance to go somewhere, even if it's somewhere I've been more than
Hmm.
once or more than whatever it is. I do not care. It still grounds me. It gives me that aspect of it makes me appreciate where I come
Right.
from, where I'm going, and where I'm at that moment. So, um, and I'm trying to become better actually at the aspect of solitudeness because you ever just realize sometimes we internalize other people's, I guess, things, and you don't even realize you're internalizing the other people's energy or other people's problems to where you're like, oh wait, when did I think for myself? So that's why solitudeness really gives me the ability to be like, let me reconfigure my settings
Yeah.
here. Let me go back to ground one and ground zero. Um, so we have this segment we usually call Three for the Founders segment. I'm pretty sure you know why it's called Three for the Founders segment. And we usually just it's three questions or three things that we share, we do. So it's three questions I'm gonna ask you. It's just for practically building, your creative side, your insights, and showing you as how your voice has changed for
Yeah.
yourself. So question number one is, what's one hard lesson you've learned about showing up for others without losing yourself?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones, and specifically in this field, is like, you know, it's just the aspect of spreading yourself thin, right? Like, I think it doesn't matter how much you help others, you still have like a level of productivity and efficiency to maintain, if that makes sense. So, specifically, you could spend a lot of time for at least for me, like I could spend a lot of time working on research projects, or I can spend time, working with patients or, having conversations with some of my friends, my best friends, and be on the phone. But that doesn't change the fact that I still have a lot of things to do, right? Or a lot of things to accomplish. And with that being said, the more energy you put out, the more you kind of have to front load some of your work, right? And then that reduces the time that you spend of those isolation moments that you have, or those times to fill up your cup. And so, for me at least, is just be mindful of burnout, right? Being mindful of, limiting my involvement with others. Um, and I think, I've been in situations and times where I was stretched too thin. And then you forget, dates, or you forget events, or your output looks sloppy because you're just so stretched thin that you can't really officially meet the things that you've been tasked with. And so for me, it's just like, having limitations, having parameters to which I know whether I can exceed in this, or if I don't feel like I can be completely there, then I'll just like step back a little bit and put that on the back seat because my to-do list is always getting filled up, right? Everybody has so many obligations, responsibilities, and being efficient at them and having an enjoyment as well with them is the most important thing.
Wow. Okay. How do you, this question too, how do you balance impact, authenticity, and sustainability in your work?
Yeah, that's tough because I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out, honestly. I think being authentic for me is, it's a challenge, I think, just for the fact that, every space that you occupy, you gotta be mindful of how you talk, how you interact with others, especially I think just as an individual that is representing as Jamaican heritage or, someone who previously played sports or an athlete or whatever that case may be. Just being mindful how people view you is really important, I think. And specifically, just choosing to be unique. I think at the end of the day is how I be more authentic. That goes far above what most people would say, because I think that authenticity will put you in the right way in terms of what support you need or how you show up in environments, how you engage with the work that you put your time and effort in, because you're just being authentic and truthful in what your desires are. So I think it's a challenge, and I'm often times thinking about that myself, but if I just lean in and be more adept to being unique, I think that's just like the big winner for me.
Authenticity knocking out the door, it's the key to all the doors, I
It
think, being
is.
unique and having that aspect for yourself. Last question before we come to a close today. If someone wants to build something meaningful and around mental health or community, where should they start?
I think I think they should start based upon like a target population, right? I think there's so many different groups, right? You have our Black African American groups, we have Caribbean groups, diasporic groups, you have Latinx groups, you have religious affiliation groups, you have so many different groups, gender groups, and so I think just focusing on a specific group that needs help or assistance and issues or social determinants of health that are attributed to those groups, I think that goes a long way, right? I think specifically within our communities, we know some of the things that need to be addressed. Stigmatization is a big one, right? Access to care is a big one. And just having conversations that are transparent is a hard one to talk about, but it's a big one, right? And so with that being said, you can better address that community, right? And so I think just being focused on what population you're serving, having cultural competent information, and really speaking to community members is like the most important thing. I think just in the field.
Yeah, competency is it's a very big thing because you can't just have every type of person in every type of
Yeah,
community doing work. They have to be able to understand those specific environments, those specific people, and those specific cultures. So that's some great advice right there,
yeah.
man. And as we come to a close here, kind of want to end with some clarity and grounding, right? So, what's giving you hope right now in everything that you're doing, everything that's going on in the world? What's that one thing that's giving you hope?
The one thing that's given me hope is just, I think, unification. I think that's given me hope. I think that people, due to the social anxiety and due to the social isolation, I think people are in turn using these platforms to conversate, to talk, collaborate on things, and have real discussions. And I think that unification is such a big pivotal role in what I view as something being positive and what fuels me at the end of the day.
Is what do you want people to sit with after listening to this conversation or watching this conversation?
I guess I actually make a question out of this. I would say ask yourself, how do you find enjoyment in everyday small tasks? I think that goes such a long way. Um, I think we talked about the power of now and being in the moment. So just like self-reflection on how you be more intentional about the time that you're using it. Um, Reduce the comparisons. I think that's a huge thing within social media. So just finding ways to be more intentional about your own internal feelings, how you're showing up with others, which spaces you try to choose to be in, and just gratification for the journey that everyone's living, and just taking more time to enjoy the small things. I think that's really what I'm trying to leave with it.
Man, thank you for that. You know, comparison is a thief of joy,
Thief
so
of joy.
really appreciate you. Yeah, it is. I think something I really just starting to learn as well is like comparison is a thief of joy. When you compare yourself too much and you try to put yourself, just run your own race,
Right.
um, and appreciate and be grateful for every single moment that you have. Um, Nate, man, it's been awesome having you on the pod, man, and I'm really excited to see the rest of the work you're doing. Maybe next time back on here, you'll be the expert licensed
Yes.
in this field, and we can get into the
We
nitty
got 3
gritty of
more years of
everything.
that, but yes, sir, we will be there.
Um, it's gonna fly
Yes,
by real
sir. Yes,
quick,
sir.
man. It's gonna fly by real quick, and congratulations to you, man, for just taking on that journey and being present with it, and continue just doing it because you're being a voice of change for yourself. You're doing something that you're passionate about, but you're also doing something that's bigger for. It's a bigger
Yeah,
purpose, for everybody else around you, which is very commendable. Um, and all I can say, man, that's inspiring to me. And all I want to say is thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing how you're going to continue being a voice of change, not just for yourself, but for the people around you, man.
man.
So thank you
Appreciate it.
so much for being on the
Yes,
podcast, man.
sir. All love, all love.
All right. Peace out, y'all.